David and his wife Jessica moved to another town. The place wasn't big. For the locals, new people coming to live there was a big deal. That's why, the next day, the couple's curious neighbors came to say hello. Karen introduced herself and said she was sure they'd become great friends. She had even cooked cupcakes for David and Jessica. Elderly Mrs. Latham told the newcomer she'd been living in the town for almost 80 years. Betty was extremely excited. A man's come to live in our small town. And so good-looking at that. Awesome news. Two of the neighbors seemed a bit creepy, and only one looked normal. Who was it? Karen had decorated her cupcakes with something that looked suspiciously like eyes. Betty is too enthusiastic about David. As for Mrs. Latham, she is sure to know lots of things about the town and its inhabitants. She can be a useful source of information, and she cooked them some soup. Brandon's wife told him to cook several eggs, but the man had to boil them for exactly 2 minutes. She left her husband 3 hourglass timers for 3, 4, and 5 minutes. How can the man boil the eggs for exactly 2 minutes? Brandon waited until the water started to boil. Then he turned over the 3 and 5 minute timers. When the 3-minute timer ran out, he dropped the eggs into the water. And when the 5-minute timer ran out, he had his perfectly boiled eggs. It was the first time Eric sailed his brand new yacht. But the man seemed to be out of luck that day. A bad storm sank the yacht, and Eric hardly had any time to make it to the surface. Half conscious, he ended up on some beach. In the morning, the man realized he was stranded on a tiny, uninhabited island. No radio, no cell phone, no means of communication whatsoever. And the island had no trees to make a smoke signal. On the third day, Eric noticed a small plane circling in the sky over the island. Were they searching for him? But the aircraft was flying too high, and the pilot couldn't see Eric. And still, the man did something, and soon he was picked up by a rescue helicopter. How did he attract the pilot's attention? Eric picked up some stones and used them to write SOS on the sand. Helen lives in Singapore with her husband Dennis. Once, she tells her husband she wants to visit her aunt who lives in Italy. Dennis doesn't mind, but he asks his wife to send him a photo as soon as she gets to Europe. When Helen lands in Rome, she sends Dennis a selfie. Under the picture, she writes, "Ciao from Italy, I've just arrived." After looking at the photo, Dennis realizes his wife lied to him. How did he know? In the picture, the clock on the wall shows exactly the same time as the clock in the kitchen, which is in Singapore. If Helen was in Rome, the clock would show a big time difference. One day, Christopher decided he had to develop his logical thinking skills. The guy found a tutor and started visiting him to have private lessons. But this teacher had one interesting habit. Closer to the end of each lesson, he always gave Christopher several riddles. The guy wasn't allowed to go home until he solved them. This Friday, the first riddle went like this. How can you make 6 into an odd number? Tricky. How? He removed the letter S and got IX. That's 9 in Roman numerals. But the guy knew it was just the beginning. The next riddle was even more difficult. It's thin, but when water splashes it, none seeps through. When hit, it changes color. It covers an incredibly complex thing, yet it's very easy to flex. What is it? At first, Christopher didn't have any idea. Duh, he'd have to stay and crack riddles till midnight. Luckily, in a moment, it dawned on him. It's the skin. Christopher's tutor was impressed with the guy's progress. Okay, he said, one more riddle and you can go home. 3 doctors said that Ryan was their brother, but Ryan claimed he didn't have any brothers. Who was lying? Christopher figured out right away that everyone was telling the truth. All the doctors were Ryan's sisters. Whew, he could finally go home. The morning after a heavy snowfall, Justin went outside and stopped in his tracks. He saw there was twice as much snow on top of his garage as there was on his neighbor's. Still, Justin didn't get surprised or upset. Why? Justin's garage is twice as big as his neighbor's. No wonder it also has twice as much snow. Amy went on holiday to the seaside and met 3 guys there. They were friends, but it didn't stop all of them from trying to impress the girl. In the evening, they all met in a restaurant to have dinner, and the guys started to tell Amy about their adventures. Sam boasted, "I'm a pilot, and I've already traveled all over the world." Larry said, "I once took part in an expedition to the North Pole. It was amazing. I saw penguins and polar bears." Jerry barged in, "And I'm an astronaut. When I was in space last time, I went on a spacewalk. I wanted to see our planet from above, but I was almost blown away by a strong wind." Who's lying to make a better impression? Both Larry and Jerry are lying. Penguins live near the South Pole, and there's no wind in outer space. It's an almost perfect vacuum.
Tyler is on his way to visit his grandma. She lives on the opposite side of the village. It's her birthday, and he wants to give her the cakes that he has prepared. Unfortunately, there are 7 bridges that Tyler needs to cross to get to her house. And there's a mermaid under every bridge. The mermaids always require payment from those who cross their bridges. Before Tyler can cross the bridge, he has to give the mermaid half of all the cakes that he's carrying. But since the mermaids are kind, each of them will give 1 cake back to Tyler. How many cakes should Tyler take from home to make sure that Grandma receives exactly 2 cakes? Two. Tyler will have to give half of his cakes at each bridge, but he'll still get 1 cake back. If Tyler takes 2 cakes from home, he'll manage to stay with 2 cakes after every bridge. Will is going on a jungle trip for 1 day. He asked his wife to pack something to eat, something to drink, and something to help him stay warm. When Will opened his backpack, he found just 1 thing. Can you guess what it was? A coconut. Will can drink coconut water. He can also eat the coconut meat. And finally, Will can use the coconut peel instead of wood to warm himself up. Nina decided to play a quiz game. She kept asking the same question to everyone she met, and each time she got a different answer. Can you guess what the question was? The question that Nina asked was, what is the time? Take a look at this picture. Can you predict which tank will fill first? Tank 5. The connection between Tank 5 and Tank 2 is blocked, so the water will move into the 5th tank from the first one. But it won't go to Tank 2. Therefore, Tank 5 will fill up first. What about this complicated structure? Can you tell which of the tanks will fill first? Okay, here's the explanation. Tank C is pretty tricky because it's blocked on the right side. So, the water will move to Tank J. And now, it will move to the right and go through Tank L. At this point, it seems pretty obvious that Tank H will get filled first, but that's wrong. It's blocked as well. So, the correct answer is Tank F. There is a wide field of corn. A fox finds its way into the field and starts running. Can you find out to which point the fox can run into the field? The fox can only run to the middle of the field. After that midpoint, the fox will actually be running out of the field. Stacy is a weather forecaster. It's raining today at 11:57 a.m. Can you help her figure out the chances of sunny weather in 72 hours? The chances are 0. In 72 hours, it'll be nighttime. How is a fly different from a mosquito? A mosquito can fly, but a fly cannot mosquito. This is Rick, and these three ladies are Melanie, Meg, and Millie. Melanie loves strawberry ice cream. Meg loves blueberry ice cream. And Millie hates ice cream. Can you find Rick's wife among these women? It's Meg. She has a matching ring on her finger. Ice cream preferences don't really matter here. 1.5 guys eat 1.5 burgers in 1.5 hours. How many burgers can 9 guys eat in 3 hours? More hours mean more burgers, and more guys mean more burgers. The time was doubled to 3 hours, and the number of people rose 6 times. Therefore, the number of burgers will be 18. Take a look at this arrangement. It consists of 15 matchsticks. How can you remove exactly 6 matchsticks to make 10? Here's the easiest way. Frank is a grandfather. His grandson is about as old in days as his son is in weeks. The grandson is also as many months old as Frank is in years. The sum of their 3 ages is 140 years. How old is Frank? Can you guess? To solve this riddle, we need some calculations. Let's say the grandfather is A, the son is B, and the grandson is C. Since the total age is 140 years, we can make up the following equation. A plus B plus C equals 140. Also, the grandson is about as many days old as the son is in weeks, which can be expressed in this equation. 365C equals 52B. And finally, the grandson is as many months old as Frank is in years, so 12C equals A. Now we can put this information into one big equation and calculate the final result. 12C plus 365C divided by 52 plus C equals 140. 624C plus 365C plus 52C equals 7280. 1041C equals 7280, so C equals 6.99. Since the task said that the grandson was about as old in days as his father in weeks, we can round up that number to 7. Therefore, Frank is 84 years old, and his son is 49. If you multiply all the numbers on your phone, what number will you get? Zero. Remember that multiplying any number by 0 always results in 0. Jerry and Sarah went hiking to celebrate their anniversary, but only the wife returned from the vacation. She went to the local police office and said, "Jerry got lost in the woods while I was sleeping in our tent." The sheriff arrested her, saying, "I've talked to your travel agent. We suspect that you're involved in Jerry's disappearance." Sarah didn't inform anyone about the trip. Why did the agent and the sheriff decide that she was guilty? Sarah bought only a one-way ticket for her husband and a round-trip ticket for herself. It means that she was sure that she would be returning alone. Can you tell which of the following statements is true? One statement here is false. Two statements here are false. Three statements here are false. The second statement is true. 13 caves are arranged in a circle in an enchanted forest. Each of the 13 caves has treasures and gems. Every day, the cave's guards can move the treasure to an adjacent cave or can keep it in the same cave. Meanwhile, every other day, treasure seekers visit the forest and have enough time to enter any two caves of their choice. How can the treasure seekers make sure to find the treasure in the minimum possible days? One of the treasure seekers should move clockwise every day, and one of the treasure seekers should move counterclockwise. This way, they'll find the treasure in a minimum of 7 days. Alice was sitting in her hotel room. Suddenly, she heard a knock on the door. She opened the door and saw a creepy woman standing outside. The woman said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I thought this was my door." Then she walked through the corridor to the elevator. Alice didn't know the woman. She locked her door and called the hotel security. Alice asked them to arrest that woman. Why did the woman seem suspicious to Alice? If the woman thought the room was hers, she would have used the keys, but she knocked on the door. Alex, Amy, Allie, and Austin got trapped in a jungle. There's a bridge that can lead them back to the city safely. But the bridge is very old and dark. It can handle only 2 people to pass through. Also, the family has only one flashlight to move through the dark. Alex takes 1 minute to cross. Amy takes 2 minutes. Allie takes 4, and Austin takes 5 minutes. How can they all get to the other side in the minimum possible time? Here's what they've got to do. Alex and Amy should go first. It'll take them 2 minutes. Then Alex should spend 1 minute going back to Allie and Austin. Now Allie and Austin should take the flashlight and cross the bridge. It will take 5 minutes. Then Amy should come back to Alex. At this point, they've already spent 10 minutes. And now, Alex and Amy will have to spend 2 more minutes crossing the bridge. And this is how all of them will reach the other side in 12 minutes. Stephanie is a college professor. A supervisor will be visiting her class tomorrow. The supervisor can ask the students any questions. They can be either easy or difficult. Stephanie will still have the right to decide which student will be giving the answer to each question. Stephanie wants to leave the best impression. What instruction should she give to her students to maximize the chances of receiving a correct answer for each question? Can you help her? This task is pretty easy. All Stephanie needs to do is to ask all the students to raise their hands on every question. But those students who know the right answer should raise their left hand, and those who don't know the right answer should raise their right hand. This strategy will help Stephanie to get only correct answers. The supervisor will also be impressed because all the students will raise their hands. Molly and Polly are twins, but only one of them is a real police officer. Can you tell who? Molly. There's a camera filming Polly because she's an actress. Michelle was having a house party. She noticed that her brother had disappeared and went upstairs to find him. When she neared his room, she heard laughter. Her brother was in there with some girl. But Michelle couldn't figure out who it was. She got very curious, so after they left, she sneaked into his room to look for some hints. She suspected 3 girls, Lily, Sydney, and Nicole. Michelle immediately guessed who her brother was dating. Who was it? Her brother is dating Nicole. There's an earring on the couch, and Nicole is wearing only one earring, which looks exactly the same. She must have lost it. Can you tell which student in the classroom isn't a real person? The guy in the middle doesn't cast a shadow. There's definitely something fishy about him. Michael had a crush on Ellie, the girl he studied with. One day, he decided to write her a note, asking her out. Unfortunately, he didn't remember which desk was Ellie's. Can you tell which one Michael needs? Take a look at Ellie's photo. She's waving her left hand, which means she's likely left-handed. There's only one desk where the pen is to the left of the copybook. It must be Ellie's desk. A grocery store manager found out that someone had been stealing bananas from the store all the time. The man conducted his own investigation and got 3 suspects. But he couldn't accuse the customers until he was 100% sure. Take a look at these people and say who the banana thief is. Look at the guy wearing a top hat. It's a perfect place for hiding and stealing stuff. He must be the thief. Brandon and Genevieve are on their working trip to London. They decided to meet in a cafe in the evening. Now, they're both driving there. Can you tell which of them isn't smart? Brandon. In England, people drive on the left side of the road, and he's driving on the right. Early in the morning, a big sum of money went missing from the accountant's safe in the office. Only 3 people were at work at that time. Haley, the accountant, said she'd left for a couple of minutes to go to the bathroom. Eric, the software manager, claimed he'd had his lunch break and hadn't seen anything. Joseph, the cleaning man, said he'd been cleaning the 2nd floor at the time. Can you figure out who's lying? It's Eric. He couldn't have a lunch break. It was still early in the morning. Someone had been stealing food from a grocery store. The manager couldn't find out who it was and hired a detective. Look at the security camera footage for the last year and say who the thief is. It's the dark-haired pregnant lady. It's been a year and she's still pregnant. Plus, the size of her belly has never changed. It must be fake. Theo was spending the day with her boyfriend Derek. After lunch, he said he had some urgent business to deal with and left her for a couple of hours. When Derek came back, Theo realized he'd been cheating on her and broke up with him. How did she find out? Take a closer look at Derek's neck. There's a lipstick stain. It's red, while Theo is wearing pink lipstick, which means it's not hers. Mr. Roberts, one of the best surgeons in the country, came to his insurance company. The man said he'd been robbed right in the street. The assistant asked if Mr. Roberts remembered any specific details about the criminal. He said he didn't. Everything happened too fast, and he had very bad eyesight. The assistant refused to start the investigation. He said Mr. Roberts was lying. He wasn't actually robbed. Why didn't the man believe Mr. Roberts? Mr. Roberts is a surgeon. but it's not possible to work as one if you have poor eyesight. It means Mr. Roberts lied. In a small town, someone stole all the chicken nuggets from a local store. The owner called the police, and they started the investigation. There were 3 suspects who were in the store at around that time. Mrs. Wilson said her family was vegetarian. She wouldn't be interested in chicken nuggets. Mr. Martin said he'd needed to return home very fast. He had to take a conference call. He didn't have any time to waste. Mr. Thomas simply stated that he hadn't stolen anything. Can you tell who the thief is? The thief is Mrs. Wilson. She said her family was vegetarian, but behind her back, there's a freshly cooked chicken on the table. Esme was having a walk in the forest. After it started to get dark, the girl tried to find her way back home, but got lost. Finally, she came across a witch's house and asked the woman to help her find her way home. The witch only agreed to do so on one condition. She gave Esme a piece of string and said,
"Put it anywhere. If I can step over it, I'll keep you with me forever. If I don't manage to do it, I'll show you the way home."
What can Esme do? Esme should put the string right next to the wall. This way, the witch won't be able to step over it. Time for a coffee and a snack, a big one. But just then, a piercing beep smashes through the silence. The fire alarm! Oh, come on. Students file out of their classrooms, and the entire university has to be evacuated. The students are standing outside, looking at the building. No fire, no smoke even. The president gets a text from the alarm company. The alarm was triggered by a person, not a smoke detector. The president looks around. Time to round up the usual 4 suspects. Matt says he was in the bathroom when the alarm came on. Julia was taking the geography final. Clark and Lex were studying strange green meteorites together in the science lab. Which one of them is lying? You have 7 seconds starting now. It was Julia. The geography teacher postponed the final, remember? Why would she lie unless she had something to hide? Today's not really his day. Someone cut down a tree right in the middle of the quad. The caretaker saw 4 students hanging out under the tree this morning, and now it's gone. Time to interview the suspects. Emily says she's been in the library all day. Loads of people saw her. Sam claims he was in the cafeteria having some soup. Lewis was in the physics final, and Michael says he's been hitting the weights all day, trying to get buff for the beach. Who cut down the tree? Your 7 seconds starts now. It was obviously Sam. He said he was having some soup, but remember, if he had really been in the cafeteria, he would have mentioned the whole sugar thing. Plus, the president was in there and didn't see him. He's lying. On to the biology final. They've got a new teacher who's giving a unique type of final. The president sneaks in the back of the room. The teacher explains that she gave her students ficus seeds at the beginning of the semester. Whoever has the most beautiful ficus plant will get the highest grade. It's time to present the results. The students start to file into the classroom. Half of them are holding pots with beautiful green ficus trees. The other half have pots filled with plain old earth. No leaves, no nothing. The teacher says the students with empty pots all get an A. Why did the teacher do that? Solve this mystery in 7 seconds. Go! At the beginning of the semester, she gave everyone fake ficus seeds. The students who showed up with full-blooming plants must have bought a full-grown plant and stuck it in the pot. Ha! Busted! Last final of the day, philosophy. The young teacher is in there, waiting for all the students to take their seats. After that, he puts a bust of an ancient Greek philosopher on the table. The teacher says, "Write a short essay on the following topic: why this bust doesn't exist." The student with the most convincing argument gets an A, while everyone else gets a C. tough teacher. After an hour, the students hand in their papers. Most of them filled up the front and back, but one student only wrote 2 words, and she got the A. What did she write? I'll give you 7 seconds to figure it out. She wrote, "What bust?" The president heads outside again, this time for the parking lot. What? Someone took the tire right off of his car. How's he gonna get home? He still has a spare tire in his trunk, but the thieves took the bolts too. All 4 of them. What can he do? You have 7 seconds to come up with a plan. He needs to unscrew 1 bolt from each of the other 3 tires and attach them to the spare. Each tire now has 3 bolts. That'll be enough to get to the nearest service station. What an intense day. The president's ready to kick back for a few, but he gets another urgent text. There's broken glass all over the quad. Someone broke a window up there. The only 3 people around are a cook, a gardener, and a student. The cook says he's been boiling up a new soup for the last hour, since someone put sugar in the last one. The gardener admits he was up in a tree cutting branches. He saw a student break the glass. The student says he was studying in the library. I'll give you 7 seconds to figure out who's lying. The gardener's lying. How could he have been up in the tree? It had already been stolen. He broke the glass, probably just by accident. The day's finally over. The president heads over for the best tradition on campus, the post-finals party. It's in the basketball arena. There are lights, decorations, and even a DJ. Everyone's dressed up, looking relieved. Finals are over. The party goes all night, but around 4 a.m., someone accidentally slams the doors too hard, and it triggers the automatic locks. Everyone's trapped. The president can be the hero of the party. He just needs to find a way out, grab the spare keys from his office, and open the door from the outside. But how? One of the students, Eric, says he knows how to get out of the gym through a vent. The president looks at him, and his face goes red with anger. Why? Last riddle, 7 seconds. You can do it. Eric just gave himself away. He's obviously been in the ventilation shafts before, so it was probably him who stole the physics final.
Amy's elder sister, Vicky, gave her this shopping list and asked her to get some groceries. Amy took the list without even looking at it, but when she arrived at the supermarket, she realized that her sister had pranked her. Vicky has encoded the names of the products she needed. Can you help Amy figure out what she's supposed to buy? Here's the first product. It's blueberry. What about this one? Watermelon. Can you recognize this food? That's right, it's kiwi. Here's the next rebus. Can you crack this code? Grape. What about this one? Pineapple. Great job. Next riddle. Any ideas? Vicky needs some bananas. And how about this food? That's right, Amy should buy some oranges. And here's the final product. Can you figure out what it is? Lemon. Amy took everything she needed and headed to the cashier. He said,
I'll give you a 90% discount if you manage to solve my riddle.
Amy agreed. Here's the riddle.
If you had 3 apples and 4 oranges in one hand, and 4 apples and 3 oranges in the other hand, what would you have?
Can you help Amy crack this riddle to save some money? Try to think outside the box. Obviously, you must have very large hands to hold all this. Amy left the supermarket and headed home, but suddenly she realized that she'd left her wallet at the checkout. She ran back to the supermarket, but the wallet was nowhere to be found. Amy questioned 3 people standing nearby. Bob, the cashier, said, "Sorry, I didn't see your wallet. I had the other customers." One of the customers, Kim, said, "I think I saw the cleaner take your wallet from the checkout after you'd left." And the cleaner, Nancy, said,
Who do you think I am? I need this job to support my family.
"Who stole the wallet?" It was Kim. She's holding her own wallet in her hand. But there's also Amy's wallet hidden in her boot. Amy didn't want to waste her time, so she told Kim, "I won't call the police if you give me back my wallet and crack my riddle." Kim agreed. Here's the riddle. Can you name 4 days which start with the letter T? It was Kim's lucky day because she managed to solve this riddle. What was her reply? Tuesday, Thursday, today, and tomorrow. Amy, Vicky, and their boyfriends Josh and Greg went hiking and got lost. They wandered around the forest for a few hours and found this sign. There were 3 paths through the forest. The first one would take them to a toxic swamp. No one has ever returned from that swamp alive. Hungry tigers were blocking the second road, and to use the third path, the guys had to cross an ice-cold mountain river. Which way is the safest? The third one. See this sign? It says the river is only 20 inches deep. They can easily cross it. It got dark very fast. While the friends were still trying to find a way to cross the river, their phones had run out of battery, and they only had 1 torch. The river is too risky to cross without any lighting. If all 4 people started crossing the river at the same time, the torchlight wouldn't be enough. Plus, each person would be crossing the river at a different speed. Amy would need only 1 minute. Vicky would do it in 2 minutes. Josh would need 7 minutes, and Greg, 10 minutes. What's the shortest time needed for all friends to cross the river? Usually, people jump to the conclusion that the fastest person should guide everyone. In this case, Amy would have to accompany Greg. It'd take 10 minutes. Then she would need 1 minute to come back. She'd guide Josh across the river. It'd take 7 minutes. Then Amy would spend 1 minute to return for Vicky and make the final 2-minute walk across the river. In this case, the entire process would take 21 minutes. But our task is to minimize the time. That's why we should find a way for the slowest people to walk together. So here's the correct order. Amy and Vicky cross the river, which takes them 2 minutes. Then Vicky comes back. That's another 2 minutes. Greg and Josh take the torch from Vicky and go across the river. It takes them 10 minutes. Then Amy comes back with the torch, takes Vicky, and they cross the river together. That's 3 minutes. In this case, the total time will be 17 minutes. After crossing the river, the guys meet a woodsman. He promises to guide them out of the forest if they solved his riddle. What do an island and the letter T have in common? After the friends answered, the woodsman explained to them how to find the bus stop and disappeared. What did they say? The letter T and the island are both in the middle of the water. It took a while to find the bus station, and the guys got hungry. That's why they decided to buy some food. But only one of these vending machines is safe to use. Can you tell which one? Someone scribbled "cash eater" on this vending machine, so it's probably not working. Cockroaches are crawling all over the food inside this machine. The guys should use the second vending machine. When the bus arrived, the guys realized that they didn't have enough cash to buy the tickets, but the driver was very generous. He said, "I'm gonna give you a free ride if you crack my riddle. It's very simple. Why is 6 afraid of 7? Amy solved this riddle right away. What about you? Because when it was hungry, 7 ate 9. The guys took their seats on the bus. Can you find anything weird here? This elderly lady is transparent. She's a ghost. When Amy and Vicky returned home, they discovered that someone had robbed their house. The girls called the police. Detectives questioned 3 neighbors. Mary said, "Last week my husband Rick and I were sunbathing in the Maldives. Rick got sunburned and we had to go back home earlier. We've just come from the airport." Love said, "I think I saw a suspicious guy in a hoodie near your house a few hours ago." Joanna said, "My boyfriend and I celebrated our anniversary in a restaurant. We've just returned home." Who's lying? Mary. She said that Rick had gotten sunburned, but now he looks perfectly fine, and he doesn't look tanned either. Amy decided to get a new job to save some money for college. She sent her resume to the local bank and received an invitation for a job interview. The HR manager offered her a riddle to challenge her logical thinking. Imagine you have an unlimited number of coins in your wallet. What's the minimum number of coins you'll need to make sure that each of these coins will touch exactly 3 others? Can you help Amy get the job? The correct answer is 4. She should place 3 coins flat on the table so that they form a triangle and their edges touch each other. And then she can put the 4th coin in the middle on top of the rest. Amy got the job in the bank. After her first day at work was over, she went home. But on her way home, she realized she'd forgotten her phone in the bank. So she went back and took her phone. Suddenly, the girl heard some weird noise coming from the bank vault. She went there and saw these 3 men inside the room. She noticed that one of them was an imposter right away. What about you? Can you spot him? The 3rd guy doesn't belong here. Look, he's wearing a police badge. He must be working undercover. The robbers ran away and locked Amy and the police officers inside the vault. Now they have to solve this riddle to unlock the door. They have to find a way to connect these 9 stars by using just 4 lines, all without lifting their hand even once. Can you help them find the right way? Such a task requires creativity, and this shape meets all requirements. But maybe you came up with something better. Amy bought flowers for her sister's birthday. She was walking down the street holding the bouquet in her hands. Suddenly, a man in a mask ran up to her, grabbed the flowers, and ran to the nearest restaurant. Amy started crying. A patrol car stopped next to her. Amy told the police officer what had happened. They went to the restaurant together to find the criminal. There were 4 men with very similar bouquets. Can you tell who robbed Amy? This guy. Amy's bouquet was tied with purple ribbon. Vicky organized a birthday party. To avoid uninvited guests, she asked the security guard to set a special password, but her boyfriend Harry, who was most definitely not invited, developed a plan that could help him enter the party. He hid near the door and started to listen attentively. When the first guest arrived, the guard said 12. The guest answered with 6. Then the second guest arrived, and the guard said 6. The guest replied with 3. Harry thought he'd heard enough and walked up to the guard. The man said 8, and Harry replied with 4. After hearing this answer, the guard asked Harry to leave. Why? Because the password is not half the number, it's the number of letters in the word. He should have said 5 because the word 8 consists of 5 letters. Can you count the number of squares in this image? The correct answer is 40.
Now, Anna had just graduated from college and was in the process of searching for a job. She was going to apply to a few companies, and she wanted her CV to be perfect to increase her chances. So she checked it once again before sending it. There were 3 mistakes in her CV, including typos. Can you help the girl spot them? Take a look at the year when she graduated from college. In her CV it says 2922, but that's not possible. So she must have typed 9 instead of 0 here. Now look at the education section. She wrote university instead of university. That's the second typo. And the last typo is in the skills section. That's right, the word skills itself is misspelled. A week later, Anna was invited to stage 2 of the application process in 3 different companies. The first one was a packaged food company called Pact Inc. The second one was a tech company called Data Corp. And the third one was a media company called Watch TV. But only one of them is Anna's dream job. Can you tell which of these companies it is? Take a look around her room. You'll notice that there's some merchandise from Data Corp. Anna has their sticker on her laptop, and there's a Data Corp mug on her table. But most importantly, do you see that Post-it note on her mirror that says goals? Her number 1 goal is to get a job at Data Corp. If the first 2 hints didn't convince you, this certainly will do. The talent recruiter of Data Corp soon called Anna. She said the girl would pass stage 2 of the application process if she guessed her name correctly. But of course, I will give you a hint, she said. My name is 2 of 7 Chicago, 2 of 6 London, and 1 of 9 Edinburgh. What? Can you tell what the talent recruiter's name is? Two of 7 of the word Chicago gives you the letters C and H. 2 of 6 of the word London are the letters L and O. 1 of 9 of the word Edinburgh gives you the letter E. So, her name is Chloe. Chloe informed Anna that she had passed stage 2 and the company was inviting her to San Francisco for a face-to-face interview. That was stage 3 of the application process.
Oh my God.
The recruiter also said that the company was going to cover all of her expenses if she answered this next riddle correctly. There is a house. One enters it blind, One leaves it seeing. What is it? Do you know the answer? It's a school, and Anna answered correctly. On the day of the interview, Anna arrived at the airport too early. She was hungry, so she decided to eat something. There were only 3 restaurants open at the airport. The first one served only different kinds of salads. The second one sold various types of pizza and pasta. And the third place was a seafood restaurant. Which restaurant should she choose? Take a look at their displays. There are ants inside one of the salad bowls that are on display in the first restaurant. Pass. A few of the fish in the third restaurant's display look rotten. It's probably not a good idea to eat there. So, she should choose the pizza and pasta restaurant. Anna entered the place and ordered meatballs and spaghetti. As she was waiting, 3 friends who were eating at another table caught her eye. They all looked like very rich people. But Anna could tell that only one of them was so rich that she could literally buy anything she wanted. Can you tell how Anna figured that out? First, take a look at the menu board on the wall. All the prices are listed there. And now, look at what each girl is eating. The first one is munching on Neapolitan pizza. The price for this dish is listed as $25. The second girl is eating pineapple pizza, which costs $39.99. The third girl, though, is trying Pizza Royale, which is made with 24-karat gold topping. Look it up, it's a real thing. And its price is $4,000. That's a lot, even for an airport restaurant. So the third girl must be the richest one. It was time to board the plane. The company spared no expense to get Anna to San Francisco with comfort. So she was going to fly business class. As one of the flight attendants showed her to her seat, she told Anna that she was very lucky to be on this flight because there was a very famous actor on board, and he was sitting next to her.
Oh my God.
Can you tell which of these people is the actor? See that guy holding his cell phone? Take a closer look at the screen. He's on his social media, sharing a selfie he took with that guy, who must be the famous actor. And now, put that cell phone on airplane mode. Time to go! After the plane landed in San Francisco, Anna headed directly to the Data Corp's headquarters for her interview. She told the security guard that Chloe was expecting her for a job interview.
Hello.
After checking the guest list to confirm her words, the security guard gave her a name tag. "Here, take this. All guests have to wear it," he said. Then he gave her a card. "You need to go to the 7th floor to meet her. This card has the passcode to call the elevator. Good luck with everything." Just as Anna was going to thank him, he interrupted her and continued talking. And keep this in mind, the elevator will help you ascend in an orderly way. Anna thought, okay, weird. What can that even mean? Then she walked up to the elevator. There were no down or up buttons, just a passcode panel. Then she looked at the card the security guard had given her and saw a picture of a funny face. There were 3 numbers hidden in that image, and they were the numbers she needed to press on the panel. Can you see them? There's a 7 here, a 3 is here, and here's number 1.
Okay.
But in what order should she press them? Can you help her? Remember the weird thing the security guard said? He actually gave Anna a hint. The elevator will help you ascend in an orderly way. Ascend, order. So, she needs to enter the numbers in ascending order from the lowest to the highest. It means that the passcode is 137. Ah, here comes the elevator. Anna pressed the button for the 7th floor, but the elevator stopped on the 2nd floor. 3 people were going to get in. Anna was excited to see some Data Corp employees, but one of them didn't actually work there. Can you tell who? Remember what the security guard said about all guests having to wear name tags? This lady has one too, so she is a guest and isn't working there. Anna got off at the 7th floor and was greeted by Chloe. The woman directed her toward the manager's office. Anna walked in. "Hello, Anna, I'm Edith," the manager said. "I'm the one who's going to interview you, since you are applying for the manager's assistant position. I saw your CV and I was impressed. You've been solving all the riddles correctly, too. I have one last riddle for you, and if you crack it, we'll hire you.
Oh my god.
I'm a bean, but I'm not magic. I can be roasted, but I'm not a turkey. I can be ground, but I'm not pepper. I can be pressed, but I'm not a button. What am I? Quick, help Anna get this job." The answer is coffee. And you're going to be bringing me a lot of it. Welcome to Data Corp, Anna, Edith said. Wow, it's one weird job interview. 3 turtles are walking one behind the other. The first one says, "There are 2 turtles behind me." The second one says, "There's 1 turtle behind me and another one right in front of me." The third one says, "There are 2 turtles in front of me and 1 more right behind me." Now, how's that possible? Well, they're walking in a circle, very slowly. On a farm, there's a cow, 2 horses, and a cat. Farmer Jack drives up to his farm accompanied by his dog, Fluffy. How many feet are there on the farm? There are only 2. Cows and horses have hooves. Dogs and cats have paws. Only Jack has feet. You find yourself trapped in a medieval castle, far away from civilization. Boy, your vacation isn't turning out as planned. You can't jump out the window because it's too high off the ground. The only tree near the window doesn't look sturdy enough for you to climb on down. However, there are 3 doors, one of which can lead you to freedom. Behind the first door is a fierce fire. Behind the second door are hundreds of venomous snakes. And behind the third door, there's a pitch-black maze. Who knows what surprises are waiting for you there? So, which door should you choose? The third door. You just need to break off a tree branch, turn it into a torch by lighting it in the first room, and go through the maze. At least you'll be able to see where you're going. Maria lives in Paris, and once every 2 weeks she goes to Saint-Tropez to see her grandmother. She bought a ticket from the machine, finished her coffee, and headed to the train. But this weekend, something went wrong. She didn't make it to Saint-Tropez. Why not? She bought the wrong ticket. It says Saint-Tropez, Paris, but she needed Paris, Saint-Tropez. When she tried to get on the train, the conductor immediately told her she had the wrong ticket, and she just didn't have enough time to change it. Emma's a big fan of all things pink. She lives in a 1-story pink house. She has a pink cat, a pink dog, a pink hamster, pink walls, pink doors, and even a pink fridge. What color are her stairs? She doesn't have stairs. She lives in a 1-story house. But that house sure gets a lot of stares from the neighbors. Mark got to take part in a TV show where he had to answer some tough questions. He was doing really great and managed to answer 14 out of 15 questions. He was real nervous, only one more question and he'd hit the grand prize, $1 million. What is as large as an elephant but doesn't even weigh an ounce? Mark shouted out an answer, and now he's a millionaire. What was his guess? It's shadow. It's as large as an elephant, but it's weightless. Ice melts when you heat it up. But if you heat me, I solidify. You have 7 seconds to figure out what I am. I'm an egg. Hey, don't crack me up. Paulo was on a mission to take some nature pics for his blog. As he was walking through the forest, he fell into a deep pit. He tried to climb out, but when he grabbed onto a rock, it broke off and water started to pour in. The pit was filling up fast. Paulo saw a deflated ball, an empty barrel, and a piece of wooden board. What should he use to get out of the pit? The deflated ball is too small and has a slit in one side. The wooden board wouldn't support his weight. The best option is the empty barrel. It might just keep Paulo afloat. Anthony majored in accounting at the university. His roommates wanted to test his intelligence. They took 3 envelopes and wrote some messages on them. Then, they put the answers to Anthony's upcoming exam in one of the envelopes. Only one envelope has a truthful message written on it. The other 2 are lies. Anthony isn't allowed to open the envelopes before choosing. The first message read, "There are no exam answers here." The second read, "The exam answers are here." And the third message read, "The exam answers aren't in the second envelope." Which envelope has the exam answers in it? The first envelope has the answers in it. The first and second envelopes are lies. The third one's telling the truth. A man was driving along a country road when one of his tires burst. While changing it, he accidentally lost all 4 wheel nuts. The road was deserted and the driver was afraid he'd be stuck out there all night. But an old lady walking by said something to him that changed his luck for the better. What advice did she give him? She told him to remove 1 nut from each of the other wheels and use them for the 4th tire. This way, he could get to the nearest service station.
Look at this image. What is wrong here? Fire trucks are usually red, not green. Great job! Now, how about this picture? There are no butterflies in the winter. And one more image for you. Look at these people. Do you notice anything strange? These guys seem to be playing tennis, but they are using a tiny football. 2 people were born at the same moment, but they don't celebrate their birthdays on the same day. How is it possible? They were born in different time zones, and in one of these zones, it was already the next day. Captain Jack was an infamous and feared pirate who had robbed thousands of ships with the help of a small trick. It allowed him to approach any ship from any country easily and get close enough to grapple it without any problems. What was this trick? Captain Jack had a collection of flags from different countries. Instead of using Jolly Roger, fearsome black flag, he raised the flag of the country the nearing ship was from, and it got him immediate access. A man was in a 9-story building when a fire started. He jumped out of the window, and he didn't get any injuries. How is it possible? The man was on the first floor when he jumped out of the window. Look at these people. One of them is from the future. Can you figure out who it is? Be very attentive. Right, it's this guy. He's got a smartphone in his pocket. Now this looks like a regular picnic in the park, but one of these people is a time traveler. Who is it? It's the guy with the USB port in his arm. At this party, there is a person who came from a different epoch. Your task is to find them. It's this person wearing a chainmail armor. Poor thing, he must be sweating under all this metal. Mark got locked in a basement. There were no windows, only a door with a letter combination lock. What could probably give him some hint was a note he found in the corner. What is the code word? Mark managed to get out of the basement. The code word was SMART. The key to this riddle was hidden in the alphabet. P plus 3 letters is S, N minus 1 letter is M, and so on. Lisa woke up in the morning and found out that quite a large sum of money was missing from her purse. Her husband was on a business trip, so the person who had taken the money could only be one of her 3 kids. Her daughter Karen, who was 17, her 15-year-old son Christopher, or her 20-year-old son David. Lisa asked her children what they had been doing the previous evening. Karen said that she had gone to bed right after dinner because she had had a headache. Christopher said that he had gone to a nightclub with his best friend Rick. And David answered that he had had his football practice. Lisa immediately knew who had taken the money. What about you? Christopher is lying. He's only 15, so he couldn't get into the club. Melanie invited her colleague Maria for dinner. Maria was surprised. She thought Melanie didn't like her, but the hostess prepared a very nice meal. She even cooked tuna for both of them. She cut the fish in half, and each of them ate their portions. Sometime later, Maria paled and lost consciousness. She was taken to a hospital. It was bad food poisoning. Several days later, police arrested Melanie for trying to poison Maria. But how did she do it? The women ate the same dishes. The poison was on one side of the knife Melanie used to cut the fish. This way, only the piece of tuna she gave Maria was poisoned. 5 costs $25 and 25 $50. If you buy 255, you'll pay $75. What is it that you buy, and how much does one item cost? You're buying door numbers, and one digit costs $25. You are sailing around the world on your yacht when you get caught in a terrible storm. At one point, you hit your head against the mast and lose consciousness. When you come round, you find yourself on a beach, surrounded by unfriendly-looking locals. It turns out that they dislike foreigners. They offer you 3 options. They can send you to a cave filled with tarantulas. They can throw you into a pit filled with yellow scorpions. Or you can meet several hungry lions. What option should you choose to survive? Opt for tarantulas. They are mostly harmless to people. Michelle received a message from the building security that a dangerous criminal had sneaked into the office where she worked. She needed to get out of there as soon as possible. She was running towards the elevators when both of them simultaneously opened their doors. Inside, there were suspicious-looking guys. Which elevator should Michelle opt for? Michelle should run to the second elevator. The criminal has just entered the building. He can't be coming from upstairs. You've been driving for hours, but there's still no sign of civilization. Eventually, you have to admit that you've got lost. You are tired, thirsty, hungry, and have no money to buy anything. Suddenly, on the side of the road, you see 4 doors. Behind the first door, there is plenty of drinking water. The second door hides a lot of tasty food. Behind the third door, there is a cozy hotel room with a comfortable bed. And if you open the fourth door, you'll see piles of cash. Which door will you choose to open first? The first door you should open is the door of your car. In the morning, Paul went out of his house and saw something strange in his garden. There were several pieces of coal, a carrot, and a scarf lying there. There was a fence around Paul's property, so nobody could put those objects there. How did they turn up in the middle of the lawn? It was warm at night, and a snow person that had been standing there melted. Detective Lucas Brown was invited to Long Road College, as more and more thefts occurred there. In a week's time, the man had 3 suspects. "What were you doing when the last theft happened?" he asked each of them. Thomas said, "I was away on that day. I had to drive my younger sister to her music lesson." Amanda replied, "I spent that day in the library, getting ready for my presentation." Ryan said, "I'm going to Denmark with my parents this summer. That's why I spend all my free time learning Dutch." Lucas immediately understood who was lying. Can you figure it out? It was Ryan. They speak Danish in Denmark. Dutch is the official language of Netherlands. 4 prisoners took up art classes. They studied every Monday. Guards escorted them to the art room and searched the prisoners at the end of every lesson. All the prisoners had their own art supplies, which they kept inside their cells. The question is, which of them has more chances to escape? Your time is over, and the answer is this prisoner. He can use his supplies to paint his clothes green. This way he'll look like a guard and will be able to sneak out of jail. Criminals kidnapped 3 bank workers to get secret financial information from them. The bankers were locked in a basement with only 1 window high above the floor. The men decided that at least one of them had to escape and warn the police. The men stood on each other's shoulders, but the one on top still couldn't reach the window. What can they do to escape? The tallest of them should climb on top. And since this man also has longer arms, he will manage to reach the window.
A member of an expedition to the South Pole found himself in a frozen cave. He didn't remember what had happened, but he knew he had to get out. The man saw 3 doors and a note saying what was behind each of them. Behind the first door, there was a hungry polar bear. Behind the second door, there was a room filled with poisonous gas. And behind the third, there was a room with sharp icicles falling from the ceiling every second. Which door should the man choose to survive? He should pick the first door. He's at the South Pole. There are no polar bears there. After classes, Nora stayed at the university. She needed to finish her project. She was sitting in the hallway. Soon she got hungry. The girl went to grab some food and left all her stuff behind. When Nora returned, she checked her things and called the police. She told them what had happened and reported her wallet stolen. There were 3 other students nearby. All of them were questioned. Kennedy said she had been texting her friends. Ethan said, I did sit close to Nora for a while, but I didn't see or touch her wallet. Gabriella said she had been in the classroom and just walked out a couple minutes before. The detective listened to them and left without arresting anyone. Why? The detective remembered that Nora had gone to get some food. It means the wallet was with her and couldn't be stolen. The girl lied. 3 women, Sarah, Milla, and Eleanor, went shopping. 2 of them are pregnant, and 1 is a professional watermelon thief. Yeah, I know, but just humor me. Can you tell which one stole the watermelon? It's Milla. She's wearing heels. It's not the kind of shoes pregnant women would wear. Aurora was spending her summer in the countryside. She often took long walks in the forest alone. One day, she saw a huge mansion. It was obvious no one lived there, so she entered the house. It was dusty inside, but still beautiful. Aurora took some pictures and left the place. When the girl came back home, she looked through her photos. She wanted to pick the best ones to post on her social media, but then she saw one of the photos and screamed. Take a careful look at this photo. Can you see what scared her so much? Aurora noticed she, herself, was in the photo. But it's impossible. She was alone in the house. Stella and Adeline were sisters. Their grandmother once presented Adeline a bracelet. But both girls loved this piece of jewelry very much. So sometimes Stella snuck into her sister's room and borrowed the bracelet. One day, Adeline came home and noticed the bracelet was gone. She knocked on her sister's door. Stella opened the door, realized it was her sister, and shut it again. In a couple of minutes, Adeline managed to break into the room. She started searching for the bracelet. Stella told her that this time she hadn't taken Adeline's jewelry. Adeline didn't find anything and had to leave. But on her way out, she remembered something and managed to get her bracelet back. Where was it? When Stella opened the door, she had her hair down. But later, she already had her hair tied up. In those few minutes, she made a bun and hid the bracelet in her hair. On a rainy summer night, Mrs. Miller came home after work. Her neighbor, Mrs. Smith, visited her. The women wanted to have some tea together. Mrs. Smith said her daughter was at a party. She met one of Mrs. Miller's triplet sons there. Mrs. Miller asked which one it was, but her friend didn't know. Her daughter could never tell the guys apart. The problem was all 3 of them were grounded and weren't allowed to go out until the next week. Mrs. Miller wanted to find out who had broken the rules. She called the boys and asked how they'd spent the day. Ian, the artist, said, "In the evening, I was outside drawing." Ryan, the musician, said, "I spent all day inside writing a new song." Luke, who likes sports, said, "I did a workout and spent the rest of the day reading." Mrs. Miller understood which of her sons was lying and grounded him for another month. Who's the liar, and how did she know? Ian lied. He said he had been drawing outside, but it was raining. Once, a prison guard accidentally overheard very disturbing rumors. Someone was planning a prison break. The guard watched all the footage from the surveillance cameras and discovered that 2 women had been behaving suspiciously. One of them was a former bodybuilder, muscular, with short hair, and covered in tattoos. The other was quiet and reserved. She preferred to spend time on her own and sometimes cried in her cell. After watching the video several times, the guard figured out which woman was planning to escape. Can you do the same? It's the second prisoner. There's a file in her bun. She can use it to get through the metal bars. Mark comes up to the table. There are 3 apples, but only one of them is safe to eat. The other 2 are poisonous. Unfortunately, Mark can't skip breakfast. So, which apple should he eat? Look, this apple has a caterpillar in it. It means there's no poison in the fruit and it's safe to eat. These 3 women, Jessica, Mary, and Olivia, went shopping. 2 of them are pregnant and one is just trying to steal a watermelon. Can you tell which one is hiding a watermelon? It's Olivia. She's wearing heels. It's not the kind of shoes a pregnant woman would choose to wear. Nathan, a successful entrepreneur with a multi-million-dollar business, and his friend Jackson, a famous private detective, returned from a long-term trip abroad. They decided to stop by at Nathan's villa on the way to the city. When the men entered the house, though, they saw that everything more or less valuable had been taken away. The entire villa was a mess. "I've only been away for a month. What happened here?" exclaimed Nathan. Jackson took an apple from the dining room table and started to munch on it thoroughly. "The lock isn't broken. It means the person who took your stuff had the key." After a while, the detective asked Nathan to invite 3 people. Mia, Nathan's niece, told Jackson she hadn't visited her uncle's home. She had been having serious problems with her car for already 2 months. And the villa was too far away from the city to get there by public transport. Sarah, the maid, claimed that she had stopped by several weeks ago to bring some food and tidy up, but since then she hadn't been to the villa. Adam, the gardener, told the detective he had been on vacation and had just returned. He even offered to show his plane tickets to Jackson. The detective figured out immediately who was behind the mess. You have 8 seconds to figure it out. It was the maid. She said she brought food several weeks ago, but the apple Jackson grabbed from the table was perfectly fresh. Once, Ms. White heard someone crying. It was her little student, Abigail. The girl told the teacher her cookies had been disappearing from her locker. Someone had been taking them for already several weeks, but Abigail didn't know who. Ms. White decided to help the girl. They equipped the locker with a simple alarm that had to go off if someone who wasn't Abigail opened the door. They hid behind the corner and began waiting. In 10 minutes, they heard the alarm. When they reached the locker, it was already empty and there was no one nearby. But Ms. White noticed somebody disappear behind the art room door. She rushed inside, but everything looked normal. And still, the teacher needed no more than a minute to understand who had been eating Abigail's cookies. Look at the picture of the art room carefully. Can you find out the answer within 8 seconds? It's the girl on the left. Her painting's black and white, but there are only various shades of blue on her palette. And maybe the cookie crumbs are a giveaway too. I don't know. One perfume company hires new staff. They must swear an oath of loyalty to the company if they want to get a job. 10 people are saying the words of the corporate oath simultaneously, but some of them are cheating. Help the directors figure out who these people are. This guy keeps his fingers crossed, and the man on the left is standing with his legs crossed. They won't be loyal to the company, so the director doesn't hire them. 2 influential media moguls are having lunch at an expensive restaurant. They're discussing the merger of their companies. The transaction amount is several $billion. They're whispering since the terms of this deal are top secret, and they suspect that someone can hear them. And they're right. Some curious people are eavesdropping on the conversation between the 2 businessmen. Try to find them. The girl at the next table is reading a newspaper that is turned upside down. She's obviously trying to overhear what the billionaires are talking about. This guy over there is listening to music, but the headphone wire is not connected to anything. Another girl is sitting at the table in the corner with a cocktail, but instead of an umbrella, there's an antenna in her glass. She's recording the conversation. "Where are my employees?" a boss shouts. He's furious because 3 people haven't come to the office. He calls each of them to find out the reason. All 3 tell him they got ill. The boss doesn't believe them, so they have to arrive at the office. Mary is wearing a warm jacket, hat, and scarf. She sneezes, coughs, and looks sick. Lori is walking on crutches. Her leg is in a cast. Sometime later, Michael appears. He's got a hand injury, and now he can't type. The boss is sure that one of them is faking. Who is it? Mike's left arm is broken, but his phone is in his left pocket. He must have used his broken arm to put it there, which means he's pretending. Apparently, he just didn't want to come to work. Ice will melt if you heat it, but if you heat me, I'll become solid. What am I? I'm an egg. You buy this thing to eat, but you never eat it. What is it? It's a plate. Mia was going back home one evening. It was 11 p.m., and she had to cross a small dark park in front of her house. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind. Someone grabbed her bag and ran away. The girl called the police, and they questioned 4 suspects. Jack said, "I was choosing an outfit for a party." Camilla was getting ready for her final exam at home. Andrew told the police he had been watching birds in the park. Nora was at her yoga class. After the interview, the police understood who was behind the robbery. Can you? It was Andrew. At 11 p.m., it's too dark to see birds. James left a folder with important documents on the table in his home office and went to a business meeting. When he returned, he found out that the documents had disappeared. James had 3 suspects. His brother said, "I've been swimming in the pool since you left. I haven't seen or heard anything." The cook replied, "Tomorrow we're having a party. I've been preparing the food." The security guard told James, "I've been outside all this time, checking the garden for mice." Who knows where the documents are? It's the security guard. His job description doesn't include pest control. An accident happened at a busy crossroads in a small town. A driver who caused the crash left in a hurry. Luckily, several witnesses managed to describe the car. A police officer headed to the suspect's house. There, he saw a car that looked exactly like the one from the description, but its owner claimed that he had spent all day at home. The police officer knew the suspect was lying in no time. How? He touched the car hood. It was still hot from the engine that had worked not so long ago. You're walking along a railroad track. Suddenly, you see a speedy train approaching you. Instead of getting off the track immediately, you run toward the train. Why do you risk your life this way? When you notice the train, you're on a bridge. You can't leave the track right away and have to run to the closest place where you can do it. So a restaurant owner called the police and said a customer had stolen a large sum of money. When the police arrived, the restaurant security guard already had 3 suspects. Thomas said, I was just walking along the street. I didn't even enter your restaurant. Dylan was angry. I've never been to this place before. I was sitting in my car when that guy ran up to me and started throwing accusations. John said, I did visit the restaurant yesterday, but I just came in to get a coffee and didn't stay longer than 5 minutes. After listening to the suspects, the police arrested the thief. Who was it? It was Dylan. His car was parked in the place reserved for regular clients, but he claimed he'd never been to the restaurant before. Harrison was walking home when someone threw a bag over his head and knocked the guy out. When he came round, he found himself in a room with 4 doors and a tiny window. Harrison opened the window, but it was too small for him to squeeze through. Suddenly, the guy spotted a piece of paper lying on the floor. It was a note that said, "Only 1 door leads outside. The other 3 don't lead anywhere. You can try to open just 1 door and only once. If you don't succeed, all of them will get locked forever." Harrison thought for a while and made the right choice. How did he figure it out? He opened the window. This created a draft. The guy checked the keyholes and felt some cool air coming from one of them. It was the door to freedom. It was Sunday morning when a submarine captain found one of his sailors lying unconscious on his bunk. Someone had hit him on the head. It could only be another crew member. The captain had 3 suspects, Mateo, David, and Owen. He questioned them, and that's what they said. Mateo: I couldn't do it. I was checking the equipment in the machinery compartment. David: when it happened, I was washing dishes left after dinner. Owen: at that moment, I was busy posting a new video on TikTok. Who was lying? It was Owen. People can't use the internet for personal purposes on submarines. Leo studied art in college and rented an apartment together with his friend Andrew. Leo had bad eyesight and was wearing his glasses at all times. One day, Andrew didn't notice Leo's glasses and accidentally sat on them. They were beyond repair. Leo was so furious he shouted at his friend, and Andrew ran away. Leo called his girlfriend and asked her to give him a lift to the optician. He couldn't drive without his glasses. They were turning onto the main road when they spotted Andrew. He was lying in the bushes, unmoving. Leo immediately called the police and ambulance. Andrew was taken to a hospital, and a police officer started to question the witnesses. Leo told him, "My girlfriend was behind the wheel when I spotted Andrew. We immediately stopped and called you. We didn't see anything suspicious." The police officer arrested Leo. Why? With such poor eyesight and without glasses, how could he notice Andrew lying in the bushes? Lily called the police. She found her neighbor, a famous artist, on the floor of his apartment. The unconscious man was quickly rushed to a hospital. The police had 3 suspects. Lily said, "I live next door. I heard some shouting and loud bangs. I went to check on what was going on and found him on the floor." Zachary told the police the artist was his friend. "We agreed to meet at the restaurant, and I came to give him a lift." And Cooper said, "I ordered a painting from him, but when I came to pick it up, I saw the police." Who's guilty? It's Zachary. If they agreed to meet at the restaurant, why did he come to the artist's apartment? You wake up locked in a room with no windows and just one automatic door. Above the door, there's a large screen. Suddenly, it turns on. You hear a voice. It sounds muffled. "Crack this riddle and you're free to go. If not, the room will be filled with toxic gas in 5 minutes." After that, you see the riddle. What could it mean? Hopefully, you'll realize in time that it means sitting on top of the world. Look at these mirrors and say which one is magical. It's the one the girl in the middle is holding. Apparently, it helped her get rid of her mole. A businessman's about to go through a security check at the airport when he realizes someone's taken his luggage. Airport security officers have 3 suspects. Anna says she doesn't need someone's old bag. She has her own, thank you very much. Mike answers he's a light traveler and doesn't have luggage. He keeps everything in his backpack. James says he's been in a car accident recently. His arm's broken and he has a sprained ankle. He can hardly carry anything. In no time, the security officers arrest the thief. Can you figure out who it is? It's Anna. Nobody told her the bag was old. Several police officers are following a criminal. He hid in a random house. When the officers entered the building, they saw a costume party was going on, and the criminal pretended to be one of the guests. The police looked at the people and soon figured out who the criminal was. How did they understand it? It's the man in the black cape. Unlike other partygoers, he seemed to throw on everything he had at hand: Iron Man's helmet, Batman's cape, and Hulk's pants. 2 young women disappeared one by one in a small town. The police found an envelope with a strange code in the first girl's apartment. In the second woman's house, they discovered another envelope, this time with a weird table. It was empty, but several squares were darker than the rest. The detective suspects the girl who will vanish next might be Madeline, Melanie, or Ariana. Can you figure out which one it'll be? After studying the code and the table, the detective realized it would be Madeline. One day, before a popular blogger conference, the security of the building where it was going to take place got a strange message. One of the bloggers is going to be kidnapped tomorrow. It'll either be Monica or Leslie. It was too late to cancel the whole thing. That's why the security officers decided to keep a close eye on the girls. During the event, the girls weren't talking to anyone suspicious. Everything and everyone looked perfectly normal. But suddenly, it became clear who was plotting against one of the girls. Can you figure it out? It was Monica. Look at that rope in her bag. She was going to get rid of her competitor. Aaron was preparing for his test for ages. He was sure his answers were correct and he'd get an A. But several days later, the teacher told the guy he wanted to talk to him. It turned out Aaron had made a tiny mistake and the professor couldn't give him the highest mark. But, the teacher said, if you manage to solve one riddle, I'll give you an A. Aaron wanted to have a good mark. Of course, he agreed. That's what his teacher showed him. After thinking for several minutes, Aaron answered, and it was correct. What did he say? In between jobs. Maria was walking home from work when she heard screaming. It was coming from the house she was passing by. The girl immediately ran in to help. She followed the voice, and it brought her to the basement. As soon as she walked in, the door slammed shut. Suddenly, 3 portals opened in front of her, but only one of them led to safety. The first portal was filled with giant poisonous snakes. In the second portal, there was a huge suspended rock. It would crash down the moment someone stepped in. In the third portal, 5 hungry crocodiles were waiting for Maria. Luckily, the girl chose the safe portal and managed to escape. Which portal was it? She picked the second one. Maria threw her shoes inside, waited for the massive stone to drop, and then walked away. Two men were playing chess. They'd already played 5 games, and each man had won 3 of them. How is it possible? The men were playing with different opponents, not with each other. Sarah and Liam had a son named Oliver. On Saturday, the couple went out for dinner and left Oliver at home. When they returned, the boy was nowhere to be found. The anxious parents called the police. A detective arrived and questioned everyone in the house. The babysitter said she'd been packing Oliver's school bag for the next day. The maid said she'd spent the whole evening cleaning the kitchen. And the cook said he had been preparing food for the next day. He was listening to music and didn't hear anything. The police immediately knew who was lying. And what about you? It was the babysitter. Children don't go to school on Sundays, so Oliver didn't need his school bag to be packed.
3 people are hiding in bathroom stalls. Try to figure out who's a pregnant woman. It's the one wearing the untied sneakers. It's often difficult for pregnant women to bend over to lace up their footwear. 2 people were born at the same moment, but they don't celebrate their birthdays on the same day. How is it possible? They were born in different time zones. In one of these zones, it was already the next day. Detective Brown was having dinner in his kitchen. Suddenly, he heard screams coming from his neighbor's house. He rushed there. The door was open. When he ran inside, he saw a paramedic bending over a lying man. Once the doctor saw the detective, he exclaimed, "He fell down the stairs. Luckily, he's just unconscious. I need to take him to the hospital." Detective Brown didn't need to think twice. He called the ambulance and arrested the man on the spot. Why? When the detective was running towards the neighbor's house, he didn't see any car outside. Then how did the paramedic get there? And how did he know his help was needed? You don't have them when you're born, but you get them later. In several years, you don't have them anymore. But then they come again, but in a different form. Many years later, they might leave you again. What are they? They are your teeth. A criminal appeared in a small town, and 2 young women went missing. Right now, the 3rd girl is being taken away. When she comes to her senses, she finds herself in a well with 2 other girls. The well isn't particularly deep, so they decide to try to get out of it. The shortest and slimmest of them climbs on top of the other 2, but she can't reach the edge of the well. What can the girls do to get out of there? The tallest of the girls should climb on top. She has the longer arms and will easily reach the edge of the well. You get lost in the woods in the middle of the winter. Suddenly, you see a cabin. It's dark and cold inside. There is just 1 candle on the table and a wood-burning stove in the corner. You pull out your matchbox and see there's only 1 match left. What should you light first? The match, of course. It was winter when an elderly couple finished building a pretty new house. The husband was responsible for the construction, while his wife was a self-appointed decorator. The house looked beautiful. Very proud, they invited their teenage grandchildren to have a look at their work. But within an hour, 1 guy and 2 girls managed to break several windows. They also knocked down the fence, removed the decorations, and ruined the roof. But the most bizarre thing, the retired couple didn't seem to mind. They just smiled looking at the teenagers. Can you figure out what was going on? The grandparents made a gingerbread house and invited their grandchildren to eat it. 5 costs $25 and 25 $50. If you buy 255, you'll pay $75. What is it that you buy and how much does one item cost? You're buying door numbers, and one of them costs $25. On a rainy Monday morning, a car hit a woman at the crosswalk and sped away without stopping. Luckily, the woman wasn't badly hurt. She even managed to describe the vehicle before being taken to a hospital. It was a green van. The accident happened in a small town. That's why the police figured out easily that there were just 3 cars like that. They found and questioned all the car owners. Gary said, "My sister took part in a concert in another town. I gave her a lift and waited for the show to finish to drive her back." Angela explained to the police she'd been busy with some household chores, gardening, washing her van, and the like. Larry answered he was ill. That's why he spent the whole day in bed drinking hot tea. The police officers understood who was lying right away. Who was it? It was a rainy day. Washing a car and gardening when it's raining? Not the best idea. Angela must be lying. A man was in an 8-story building when a fire started. He jumped out the window but didn't even bruise himself. How is it possible? The man jumped out of the first-floor window. 2 people are standing near the river. Both of them want to get to the opposite side, but the boat can carry only one of them. It's summer, and the river isn't frozen. And still, they manage to get to the other bank. How? They are on opposite sides of the river. One town had a weird law. All the men leaving there had to be clean-shaven, but no man was allowed to shave himself. The only person in the town who was licensed to shave them was a 40-year-old barber. But then, who shaved the barber? There was no need. The barber was a woman.
If it's raining at midnight, can you expect that in 72 hours it'll be sunny? Nope, in 72 hours, it's going to be night again. In the room, there are 2 people, both of them sitting. But if one of them stands up, they won't be able to take the other one's place whatever they do. How is that possible? The second person is sitting on the first one's lap. A father tells his teenage daughter, "You arrived very late at 3 a.m. and made us all worry a lot. I don't want this situation to repeat." His daughter, though, replies that it will never happen again. How can she be so sure? The father was talking about the birth of his daughter. An art expert paid big money at an auction for a painting that he knew didn't cost anything. He was an honest man and didn't have any criminal intentions. Why did he buy this picture? Although the painting cost nothing, its frame was a beautiful and expensive piece of art. A street food vendor has a sign on his stall saying, "1 hot dog, $1.50. 3 hot dogs, $5. He knows it's more expensive to buy 3, but doesn't change his sign. Why? Each time a customer saw his sign, they would buy 1 hot dog, then another, and then a third one, totaling up to $4.50. Thus, everyone's happy. The customers think they're clever, and the vendor gets his sales up. During a fire, a bank was robbed. The security guard told the police that he wanted to save a bag of money, but he had to crouch to tie his boot just in front of the emergency exit. At that moment, the door opened and hit him on the head. When he came to, the money was missing. Why was the security guard arrested? Well, all emergency doors open outwards. You find yourself in a photo gallery. After looking at the wall, you realize that one of the pictures doesn't belong to the rest. You see a raccoon, a llama, a football, and a balloon. Can you tell which is the odd one out? It's the llama picture. The other three objects have 2 double letters in their names, but the llama only has 1 double. There's a barrel of water in the yard. You look inside and say that it's more than half full, but your friend argues that it's less than half full. How to figure out who's right without using any measuring tools or removing water from the barrel? Tilt the barrel so that the water touches the rim. If you can see the bottom, the barrel's less than half full. If the bottom is still covered with water, it's more. Sam and his brother John were always fighting. Their mother couldn't take it anymore and came up with a clever plan to stop them. She told the boys to stand on the same piece of paper in such a way that they didn't touch each other, and it worked. The boys couldn't fight anymore. How did she do it? The woman slipped the paper under a closed door and made Sam stand on one side and John on the other. There is a bridge that is 1 mile long. It can hold only 5,000 pounds at one time. That's exactly the weight of the truck that's crossing it. The truck reaches the middle of the bridge and stops. Suddenly, a bird lands on the truck. Is the bridge going to collapse? The bridge isn't going to break down because the truck has already used some gas to get to the middle and therefore weighs less than 5,000 pounds. A young woman is sitting near the window. At first, she's deep in thought. Then, she suddenly decides to throw something out of the window. A couple minutes later, she drops on the floor unconscious. She's perfectly healthy and isn't prone to sudden faints. There was no one outside to have hit her either. So, what happened? She was knocked out by the very same thing she'd thrown out the window. It was a boomerang that came back and hit her on the head. Well, that was a dumb thing to do. 2 men are in a room facing each other. One of the men is a psychic and can see into the future. He predicts that in 10 minutes, the other man will be hit on the back of his head. Of course, shocked and paranoid, the other man can't stop staring at the clock on the wall. And exactly 10 minutes later, he's lying face down on the floor. How could it happen? After 10 minutes, the man turned around to see if there was anyone behind him. At exactly that moment, the psychic hit him on the back of his skull. Well, I'm starting to think he wasn't a psychic after all. Abigail wanted to buy her mom the best birthday present ever. The problem was, she had 0 ideas. She decided to sneak into her mom's computer, go to her online shopping cart, and see what she had saved in there. When her mom left for work, Abigail sneaked into her home office and turned on the computer. Uh-oh, it required a password, and Abigail didn't know it. There was a sticky note attached to the keyboard. It was a clue. 1 apple, 2 orange, 2 kiwi, 1 lemon. Can you guess the password? Each number represents 1 letter of the word. A apple means the first letter, so A. Then we get P, R, I, and L. The password is April. Wow, her mom is really into fruit. A lady was shopping and left the store right after paying. A couple of minutes later, she returned. She had forgotten her wallet at the checkout counter, but the wallet was already gone. She called the police and reported the robbery. A detective interrogated the people who were in the store at the time. Sophia, the cashier, said she didn't see the wallet after the lady paid. Robert, a pilot who happened to be shopping there, said he didn't even see the wallet. He didn't have his glasses on. Mark, a landscaper, said he was in a different part of the store, so he didn't see anything. So, who stole the wallet? It was Robert, the pilot. He looks pretty blind without his glasses, so he's definitely not a pilot. Why would he lie about that? Unless… Amelia's brother, Neil, was a crazy scientist. In the past year, he had been working on a time machine. One day, he ran into Amelia's room and screamed. He'd done it! He'd invented a time machine and it totally worked. He said he had already tested it. He managed to talk to William Shakespeare, Princess Diana, and Sherlock Holmes. Amelia didn't believe him at all. Why was she so sure about it? Even if Neil had actually invented a time machine, he'd only have been able to talk to people who actually existed in real life. He said he talked to Sherlock Holmes. That guy's a character from a book and a TV show and a movie. Hey, that guy's everywhere. A woman called the police and reported that she had been robbed. She said she was in a restaurant bathroom fixing her makeup. Someone had come up from behind and hit her on the head, so she didn't know what the person looked like. The police sent her home and refused to fill out the report. Why? The woman was fixing her makeup, so she must have been looking in the mirror. She would have definitely seen someone sneaking up behind her. She lied and made up the whole story. Grab your detective hat and head over to Europe for this next one. Bill was traveling from Paris to Berlin by train. When the train got to Berlin, Bill wasn't on it. His friend reported him missing. The investigation began, and somewhere between Paris and Berlin, they found some interesting clues. There were footsteps that belonged to Bill, and a few feet away, his luggage. A detective found the person who had been sitting next to Bill on the train. His name was Sam. He said that Bill didn't have a ticket. When he saw the ticket inspector coming, he decided to make a run for it. He threw his suitcase off the train and then jumped. The detective didn't believe his story and arrested Sam for pushing Bill off the train. Why? Look at the direction the train was going. If Sam's story was true, the suitcase should be behind Bill's footsteps, not in front. Sam pushed Bill off the train, then threw his luggage off after. Mrs. Anderson came home from work in the middle of the day because she'd forgotten some important documents. When she went to the bedroom, she saw her husband lying on the bed. There was a paramedic beside him. Mr. Anderson was unconscious, and the doctor explained that he had been poisoned. Luckily, he had had time to call a paramedic before passing out. Mrs. Anderson immediately blocked off the door and called the police. She said there was a fake paramedic in her house who had poisoned her husband. How did she know? You might have noticed that when Mrs. Anderson arrived, there was no ambulance in the driveway. That's super suspicious. William was hit on the head and taken away. When he woke up, he found himself locked in a small room. He tried to open the door, but obviously it was locked. There was nothing in the room except for a wooden box with 12 bottles in it. There was an extra bottle on the floor next to it. William looked everywhere for the key but found nothing. After a bit of thinking, he noticed something. He managed to find the key. Where was it? Look at the bottle on the floor. It's exactly the same as the others, but for some reason, it's a bit lower. There must be a fake floor in the box. That's where the key is. Several women went missing in a small city. The police searched for months, but they couldn't find any trace of them. One day, a detective got lucky. He saw a hooded figure who matched their description, followed it, and found the place where they were being kept hostage. But when he busted in, there were just 3 women. They all said that they had been locked in this small room, but the detective knew that one of them wasn't a victim at all. The first woman said her name was Emery. She had spent around a year in that room. The second woman, Aria, said she had been there about 6 months. The third woman said her name was Brielle and that she had been locked up in there for about 2 months. Can you tell who's lying? Emery's lying. Look at her hair. She just had it dyed, but she's been there a year. Aria's hair is also dyed, but you can see her natural dark roots growing out.